Did you know that 5 Archbishops of Canterbury have been killed or beheaded or murdered whilst in office? Do you know who they are? It'll be Alphege, that'll be Simon Sudbury, that would be Archbishop Cranmer. Was he technically still in office? I think he was. And William Laud, who was executed in London by Parliament in the 1640s. But I'm here in Canterbury because behind me is what is the Trinity Chapel, which housed the shrine of Thomas Becket, which was built in 1220. He had been executed, or not executed, murdered by 4 knights in 1170, and his body was put in the ground straight away by the monks because they didn't want his body to be taken away as being a traitor and drawn and quartered or anything like that, or burned. And so they shoved it straight in the ground. And then in 1220, they finished erecting this enormous shrine that had so much gold in it, 1/2 ton of gold, that there was a gold shortage in England because all of the gold was going onto Thomas Becket's shrine. Pilgrims came from absolutely miles around in order to pay their respects to Thomas Becket. And not just pilgrims from England, but all over Europe and actually all over the world. Apparently some came all the way from India during the medieval period because they'd heard about the legend of Thomas Becket, who wasn't a legend. He was a real guy. He was born in Cheapside and he worked for Archbishop Theobald. He then became the Lord Chancellor for Henry II. They became very good friends. He made his friend Archbishop of Canterbury. And then his friend didn't give him the church on a plate like he was hoping. And there was a big falling out, which led to the murder of Thomas Becket. That's the story, very, very briefly. And so I think people often assume that this pilgrim site therefore made this cathedral absolutely tons and tons of money. But I've heard actually it didn't really generate that much money compared to the amount of money that the land would have generated all around the place, because this was already an extremely wealthy cathedral, because there was a monastery here and they've been accruing land and wealth since 597. So it was already 600 years old by the time they were erecting the shrine. This shrine is really, really significant. But the reason I guess maybe people don't talk about it so much is we're not a Roman Catholic country, we are a Protestant country, and the memory of Thomas Becket was completely erased by Henry VIII. Although actually, I've been reading that it was more Thomas Cromwell's doing than Henry VIII's. And isn't that interesting that Henry VIII was getting cold feet in the late 1530s, maybe thinking about going back to a more regular kind of Catholicism. And so even he was queasy about besmirching the memory of Thomas Becket, the premier great saint that England had produced. But eventually Cromwell managed to get him to do it. And obviously there was 1/2 ton of gold that the king was quite pleased to get his hands on too. So that all went away, but the memory of Thomas Becket lives on. By decree of Thomas Cromwell, Thomas would thereafter be called Thomas Becket, even though he was known as Saint Thomas of Canterbury. But anyway, if you go into the cathedral now, there's no shrine there, but there is a candle where the shrine used to be. The Trinity Chapel is still there. And I believe it was Thomas Becket who instituted Trinity Sunday in the church calendar. So that is apparently more traces of Becket still living amongst us today. And then we have the season of Trinity, or it's the 3rd Sunday after Trinity and the 5th Sunday after Trinity over the course usually of the summer. So that's what's going on behind me. That's the Trinity Chapel, and that's the story of Thomas Becket, his life, his death, his shrine, the desecration, the removal, but ultimately the memory. Thanks for watching.